Hi, I'm Michael Hill with Canine Chronicle TV, and I'm here with Mr. Dana Cline. And today we're going to talk about a couple things, and we're going to start with one thing that's near and dear to our hearts, the Great Dane breed, which I believe you started out with in dogs. Is that correct?
Yes.
How old were you when you got your first Great Dane?
Somewhere around 7 years old.
Yeah, it was probably as big as you, right?
Yeah, no bigger actually.
So, what happened after that? Did you get to showing after that? Or?
Well, I worked with the dog in 4-H.
Okay.
Certainly back then it was much, agriculture and things like that. So
Sure.
we worked in showmanship in 4-H. And it wasn't long before I got interested in showing dogs or had an interest in showing a dog because it just was a natural sort of progression,
right?
Right.
It goes to the obedience,
Right.
the 4-H, and then you're at a dog show, and then you're hooked.
Right.
And you met some pretty prominent Great Dane breeders at that time.
I did. And what's interesting is that when I saw the first Great Dane, my stepfather wanted me to have a dog.
Right.
I'm not sure if he thought I just might be a rebel rouser or something. He thought a dog would be a good idea. Yeah.
Right.
So I was not convinced that a dog was really in the plan, and I'll never forget seeing the first Great Dane.
Yeah.
And from that moment, it was startling what it did to me when I saw such a beautiful dog and majestic dog. So
the artistic
I knew
value.
Yes, I knew that. I mean, I really didn't understand, emotionally what it did to me and how it stimulated me, but I certainly know now, and I understand it now. But I knew, it was a magnificent dog, and I thought
That's pretty amazing.
that's the dog for me.
Yeah.
And
the Apollo of dogs,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So after you got that, then you started going to the shows, and you're seeing even more dogs. You're seeing different styles.
Yes, I did. I didn't have a great dog in the beginning. Mine didn't look like some of the other dogs, and I favored the other dogs. I loved mine, but I liked the other ones better. So I was a quick learner, and I knew that while this dog was mine to love, the next dog might be one that was more satisfying artistically and things. So I as we all do, we stumble through and we think the next one's going to be the good one, and the next one is not always the way it goes.
Light switch, right?
So I think somewhere in the next few years, I met the right people. Yeah. And I met Ray Cataldi with Rojan Great Danes and Gloria Keppen and Gene Fowler. I mean, there were people who were just very, important in my past and in my upbringing in Great Danes that molded my. I don't know that I necessarily needed anybody to tell me what they were supposed to look like. I did that pretty well myself.
Right. You
but
got it.
they just, they sort of honed my skills and things and
give you language for what you're seeing and understanding of it.
Yes, and provided, the instruments for me to go and breed dogs and make them available because I was trustworthy and I had so much passion. So there are a lot of people. I have to say Ray was and still is one of the most influential people because those are the dogs that I will forever love. Yeah. And it's just the way it is. I mean,
Right. No arguing with it. I know it well. Yeah. So you then started breeding these dogs.
Yes.
Were you always showing your own dogs?
Yes. I always showed my own dogs, not that other people didn't finish. And I quite honestly, it was never, prominent in breeding. I spent time learning. I mean, I just absorbed everything. So I did breed a few champions, some nice ones. Not a great dog, but it was always my passion. Yeah. And so I lived around great dogs. Right. I lived around greatness.
You saw them.
Always.
Felt them.
Always. And I touched them and I handled them. I handled some great dogs. Yeah. And for me, honestly, the handlers sometimes their thing is in the best of breed. I loved being in the classes. The competition in the classes was my favorite.
And it was very different back then.
Yes. I mean, you'd be in a class of 16 or 18 or 20 dogs. And I mean, that was to me, that was the competition. And of course, best of breed was fun. But the big open form class, or the bred by exhibitor class, that's really what got things flowing for me. And people are different. But for me, that was my place. I loved finishing dogs, and I finished. Yeah. Lots of dogs. So,
And so then you started with other breeds too, right?
I did, yes. I think probably when I was 15 or 16, I accidentally found a very beautiful German wire pointer in someone's backyard in my neighborhood, and she became a top producer. She produced probably 12 or 13 champions. I took her to a dog in New Mexico and bred her there, and we produced some very nice dogs. And she was someone's pet, but she was a beautiful pet.
Yeah,
sort of fell upon her. So yes, I bred through the years. I've bred several champions and Danes and German wire pointers and beagles. Bred one of the first Best in Show winning miniature bull terriers and borzoi. So I have dabbled a bit, but my heart is still with the Great Dane. It doesn't show loyalty with any other breed. No.
You can't get away from it.
No,
right?
no.
And then you started judging pretty young.
I did, yes. Right. I mean, I handled professionally, and there was no reason, that I quit handling. I just thought it was probably, people were kind to me along in the process, and I thought, who's going to take the place of those people that are teachers and people who are mentors? And I thought, now's the time. If that's going to happen, I can't wait. Right. So I just felt that I had accomplished personal goals for me. We all have different goals. Mine were accomplished. Mine were done. On Best in Shows, I bred a Best in Show winner. I had accomplished that. So I thought it was time to move in where I might be, move to a level where I might be able to be more helpful to people, more beginners, and
really make an impact and influence the educational side of things. Yes. Which is harder to do if you're, running dogs all day.
Right. And it's important because you can't have the beginning and the end without the middle. Right. And you just have to progress through it. It wasn't about making money. It wasn't about anything. Yeah. It was about at that level knew then I had to step up and really learn more. Yeah. I really had to, my skills had to be refined, and I was ready for that.
Yeah.
I wasn't tired of handling. I wasn't tired of breeding. Right. It was a new challenge.
Right. The next chapter.
Yeah, and I think it is a challenge for people. Some people think it's good, and they're not gonna. They do it, and they say, "Nope, this isn't for me."
Right.
And I felt it was for me. I thought that's where I belong.
Is your talent?
Yeah, that's where it's at.
Right.
And I think it's kind of proven to be a fact.
You're right. And you've had some pretty notable judging assignments. I mean, you've been all over the world.
Yes.
You've done the garden. Mm-hmm. Is there any particular memory judging of a dog or a show stands out as a highlight? I was asked that question once, and people have different opinions of what impacts their life, especially when it comes to things that are important to them in our sport. And for me, I was asked that question a very long time ago, and people were surprised. And I said, it wasn't a win. It wasn't a dog show. It was a moment that was so important, and that was I must have been maybe 18 years of age, and I was sitting at a table with the greats of our sport. Yeah. Ray, who was still up and coming, hugely successful, but still up and coming. Gene Fowler, Rose Roberts from Dinro. Gloria Kempen from Kempen. I, as an 18-year-old boy, am sitting in among these people with great dogs sitting around me, and honestly, that resonates as the most incredible moment in the history of it's different for all of us, but that had the most impact. I felt at that moment that, this is where I belong. Yeah. This is it. Yep. You
come full circle.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then I think it's interesting that you were most impacted by people who were in a teaching role, and then now you found yourself with that as a talent as well. So it's a cool connection there. Right. And so I think, one of the things I want to ask you about is when you are, judging or when you're teaching people, you're referencing the breed standard, because that's kind of the guiding force in that decision process. Tell us a little bit about what's involved in those coming to fruition and how you apply them, and what goes through your head when you're in a ring of dogs or you're talking with someone about Great Danes, and referencing a standard.
Well, first of all, the standard is the blueprint of every breed, and we all have to respect that. There is room for interpretation. I interpret a word differently than someone else might, or my frame of reference or my background coming to a new breed that I might judge, I put emphasis somewhere. You have to be careful, you have to kind of remove your former breed hat and move into the next breed. Right. apply yourself. But standards are so critical to judging any breed because it is dictated by history. It's dictated by hundreds of years ago, so
tradition.
It's a document. It's a document that, we have to respect. And so in judging, I have to, certainly, it's a combination of things. The standard is first and foremost. We have showmanship. You have handling. It's a lot of variables, but always your motive is to find the best dog that fits the best to the standard. And that's not comparing dog A to dog B, it's comparing dog A to a standard, dog B to the standard, not to one another.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to look through the other circumstances to get to the best dog. It may not be the best handler, it may not be, but always one must be true to the standard.
Right.
It creates the dog that stands for you.
Yeah. And it's what's guided the breed for decades.
Yeah.
More so, in a sport that is one of the oldest institutions of competition in this country.
And I might add, tradition. And we say these words, but quite frankly, the sport of purebred dogs there's a great deal of tradition in it.
Yeah.
Handed down family to family and generation to generation.
Yeah.
And there's links,
Right.
So in our sport, it's a little different. It has a little bit more character.
The same as every other aspect of life. But I'm glad you brought that part up because one thing that doesn't happen often is changes to the standard. In our breed in this past year, there was a change in the standard that was met with controversy. I know that was something that you were involved in that conversation, and there was different parts of you. So why don't you tell us
right in the middle.
Tell us a little bit about first of all, what was the change, the reason being, that kind of thing.
Well, not being on the interior, I can get sort of give you a superficial. Obviously, there was a call to change our standard. I have to say that I was certainly took some time for me to absorb it and was on many occasions misrepresented on how I felt about it. My feelings are today and always will be is that I'm not certain that it was even necessary. That's where I'll start. However, being an AKC judge and being committed to what I do and committed to every breed, if a change occurs, I'll respect that change. However, within that change, again, there's different interpretations. And when you are, cursed with a background like I have in the breed, you become a little...
You can't undo that.
It's very hard because when you believe in something and you believe that the standard has been brought to this point in history by, sensible, practical breeding practices that say, A plus B, on and on and on. So I'm a bit of a traditionalist, and so to be honest with you, I wasn't sure that I was on board with changing the standard. It came to the addition of a new 1, 2 colors, a pattern, color, whatever you. We're not going to get in. I don't want to get into the technical things, but basically it was the addition of the merle and the merle mantle, and that in itself was controversial because they are not one and the same. So there were lots of subplot levels to it, but my take on it was that first be certain that it's necessary. If it's necessary, be certain the reason that you feel it's necessary is good.
Is sound.
I had certain reservations through the whole thing. So here we are, and it passed, and we now have the addition. I see our breed having 8 different colors. People will disagree with me, but I could name them on 8 fingers. So I say we have 8 different colors and patterns.
And that would be Fawnin, Brindle, Harlequin, Mantle, Black, Blue, and Merle. But the interesting, confusing part that I know I've been approached about, and I think you're referring to, is that within that Merle, there's 2 different patterns.
Our standard, an illustrated standard, describes 2 entirely different dogs. And go back a little bit. Historically, our standard is truly the story of a breeding family of dogs. You know, we have dogs that are bred to one another for a reason.
Yeah.
They produce what our goal was to produce. Harlequins didn't come around accidentally.
Right.
They don't remain accidentally. It's sensible, practical breeding practices that make those colors exist in all of them.
Right.
And there's a reason why we aren't negligent with that, with those practices. And I can't think of a reason to do it. Other people may, but I will tell you right now, I don't agree with them.
Yeah.
And this is the way it stands. But I do believe that one of the things in our standard that is problematic for me, both as a judge and as someone passionate about the breed, is that we have a black mantle dog and a solid black dog. Those dogs are shown in a separate class. Why?
Different breeding families.
Different breeding families of dogs. Plain and simple. No argument about it.
Right.
Almost anyone in Great Danes would tell you they're in separate classes because we never intended to breed them together.
Right.
So
it might be done, but
history tells us probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
The results aren't going to go along with our
consistency of the preservation
desired outcome. So now we have a merle mantle and a solid emphasis on solid merle Great Dane, which are exhibited in the same class.
Right. How does the judge sort through those variations?
I really have a hard time with that. Let me just tell you, I have a hard time with that because I know too much, and so I know by being taught by some great mentors, those dogs don't belong together. Those dogs they're not of the same genotype and breeding family.
Right.
And that may be something no one ever really needs to know. But when you're invested, as we are, it's important to us. We have passion for that.
Yeah.
We have respect for that. That's probably one of the words that people leave out. It's respect for our forefathers and respect for all the hard work put into producing
that made this breed exist.
Absolutely. And color, markings, patterns, those are essential to our breed. Essential.
They're part of breed type.
And we must protect them. Yeah. So, I from the beginning was not necessarily in favor, but I softened because I saw why the merle mantle had a place.
Right.
I knew it had a place. I talked to very knowledgeable people who said, look, you have to change your mind on this one because it does no harm. And so
that's good to know.
There I was. I was okay with that.
Right.
Again, I misrepresented as a person who would never reward them.
You already have.
Not true, right? Absolutely. One of the first people who did. And so, the moral of the story is that while color should never be everything you make, your decision on, it has to be important.
Absolutely.
First, the quality of the dog, first, the type of the dog, that's all part of it. But color must always be an important factor.
Right.
Breed, it is what makes our breed, beautiful. It makes, unique.
Not every other breed has those divisions of opens and those colors, so there's a point to that.
So it's essential that we honor that and we respect that.
Right. So, and I think the part about type and hallmarks of the breed, specifically with the Great Dane, what would you say are the related to its purpose, related to what to prioritize aside from color? What would be like your crash course for a judge or something?
Well, there's one statement, and there's many breeds. I'll use a bulldog as an example, or a French bulldog. When I just judged the French bulldog, no dog in a breed where head is so essential can ever reach greatness without having greatness in that part. A Great Dane that has a moderate, mediocre, less than adequate head, it might be a Great Dane. It can never be a Great Dane. And that's so important when you're educating people. Say to them, look, it might represent a Great Dane really nicely in a group, which is kind of a benign place for me. It's your peer level. And, for me, I say to them, look, it's essential that you understand them on that level. Right. And don't go beyond that. Walk in the ring, and if a dog, you should understand why a dog does this. You should understand why. Right. Not just because he's big, not the biggest one, not the whatever. It's all part of the story. So
Yeah.
color can do that to you.
Right.
I mean, I'll tell you, when I see a beautiful Harlequin, it doesn't have to be a great dog,
Right.
but if it has beautiful color, I'm very stimulated by it because it's so important to me.
Yeah.
It's just a factor.
And it has artistic value.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and it's not easy to come by. I mean, it doesn't just fall into place.
Right.
So when I judge dogs, when I educate people into it, I say, look, you must be open-minded. You must come to the table with the tools to teach you about what a Great Dane is, not how a Rottweiler or not how an Akita or how they're similar. These are Great Danes.
Right.
Great Danes have a specific,
list of priorities.
absolutely, and they're not like others. Some might cross over.
Right.
There might be areas, but Great Dane, truly the Apollo of dogs.
Right.
And its aesthetic value is so high, so much higher than so many other breeds,
Yes.
that you must pay attention.
Right.
You must be willing to give into that.
Right.
And if you don't, don't judge the breed.
Yeah.
Because it's that important. It's so important, the aesthetics of the dog. You stand back, the outline, it's completely an outline breed.
Yeah.
That has to fit immediately.
Yeah.
When you first walk in and see it. And you know what? We've talked about this, and I'm going to steal this because Ray and I kind of invented this once, is that it's like a figure skating contest from years ago. You're too young, you'll never remember. But they used to do compulsory figure eights down in, when they have their casual clothes on.
Yeah.
And they all got an A. They all got the highest score. And then they move up to the true competition where artistic value and technical merit counted.
Yeah.
That's where you begin to sort. That's where that dog that visually gives you that stimulation.
Yeah.
And, all of the things, the way they fit together and how they flow, and his head, those are all artistic.
He gives.
Yeah.
The expression.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to be willing. I tell people when I educate them, I will give you the tools.
Yeah.
If you are not brave enough to use them, if you're not brave enough to step up and say, so-and-so told me that this is hallmark in this breed.
Yeah.
And I accept that.
Yeah.
I accept that. I'm going to change my thinking from before, and I accept that head is of utmost importance. It's not everything, but in the end, it has to mean so much to the value of the dog.
Right.
And if you can't prepare yourself to do that, it's just not a breed that's for you.
Right.
And
it's not saying those other things about movement or whatever don't
absolutely
matter.
essential.
They need to be there. But unlike other breeds, that has a whole other level of importance that makes it a Great Dane.
And I said once in an article, I said, look, you want the highest jumper, not a Great Dane. You want the fastest runner or one that can jump in the weed. All those things that are great
Go
for
all
dogs.
day.
Well, if you want the one that's going to win the beauty contest, you got one of those breeds that's going to win it. And that's essential in assessing the breed.
Right.
Period.
Which is a perfectly acceptable purpose for a dog.
Absolutely. Nothing wrong with beautiful.
Yeah.
And you know what? Beautiful can do the same thing as any other can do.
Yeah.
But it's part of breeding, and successive breeding produces that.
Selective.
But it's not luck.
Combination
of
of genetics.
a little luck maybe, but in the end, that's why families of dogs look alike time and time and time again, because they have vision, and one person has vision for beauty and one person has vision for soundness. Well, soundness is universal. All dogs can be sound and they don't look a thing alike. When you have the vision for the artistic value of the dog, which you're going to end up over and over. It's called a successful breeder.
And if you are successfully doing that, it shows it's not because it was accidental.
Right.
It was intentional.
Method.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really helpful way to explain what's important in that breed, because like you said, it's not the same in every breed.
Right.
But I think that the key takeaway from that is that's what got you in the breed in the first place.
Absolutely.
It wasn't the size, it wasn't what it could do, but it was that feeling it gave you when you look at it and you were impressed with it.
Absolutely. And judging, I've had a number of, considered a fairly reputable mentor in the breed, and I like to think that I'm fair, and I like to speak from what I would do, and I've had several questions back to our standard on, how do I address the standard changes, or how do I feel about it? And I said, my personal feelings about it are out of it. It's done. I'm going to judge by the standard, or I'm not going to judge the breed. If I can't judge by the standard,
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge the breed. I decided somewhere in the middle I was going to reason with that. Yeah. But I think it's important for people to understand that in this standard change, we have gotten a new color.
Yeah.
Just because it's new doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be the favorite.
Right.
Doesn't mean that it's going to produce dogs of value within that color that is a new change. Not to say that it can't, but one should not be deceived that as a judge, there are, the color that a dog wears does not make it a show dog. Fawn can be a beautiful fawn with beautiful color and a beautiful black mask and not be a show dog. It's a fact. It can be every color of dog in our breed. So you have to be mindful that judges are allowed to apply boundaries in our new color, in our new pattern, because it's essential. Again, I'm going to say it again, can't stress it enough, that's tradition. That's mindful breeding practices that produce those dogs. And until such time that we say it doesn't matter, and the standard writes and says this does not matter, I'll always feel this way, and I will tell judges, this is how I do it. Illustrated standard says, dogs, this is a dog in the acceptable variation or the variant of the breed standard. So as a judge, I say to them, look, you are allowed to say, I don't believe this fits. I don't believe this fits. So if I were going to give anything to judges at this point to take away and give them a little bit of confidence, is that it may all be new. It doesn't have to be confusing. Because if you go back to what you learned originally, that a harlequin is a harlequin for a reason, a fawn is a fawn for all those things, what makes them important, what makes them, valuable. The same thing happens. The new color, those dogs, in order to keep the bar high, it's our responsibility as a judge to force them to do so. Hold them to that standard. And so, I do it for myself. I have rewarded the color. The dog was a beautiful pattern. He had a beautiful pattern. He was a very nice dog, and I pointed to him because I'm there to pick the best one.
Right.
So, but you cannot say as a judge, because it's confusing to you, you're not going to address it. I've had many judges say, Dana, it's too confusing. I'm just going to put them to the end of the line. And I say to them, no, that's not judging my breed. That's a cop-out, and you should not judge. So, that lesson I want people to learn is that, you are allowed a boundary. You are allowed to observe boundaries. And it's okay, and you'll have support, and people will support you. Because there are people. It was not unanimous. It was not like absolutely the standard needed to be changed. It was controversial, and there are people who still believe that we want color and pattern to be sacred. A sacred entity in our breed. I will believe it always. And I may not judge the breed someday. I'm saying I may not judge it because of a change.
You can only speak for right now.
Today I can live with it. And I will teach that it's sacred. You don't have to agree with me. That's just the way it's going to be for me. And if someone asks my opinion, that's the opinion I'm going to give them. Absolutely.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. I think it's so great to have somebody whose life has literally been about this breed of dogs sharing why your thought process is the way it is, so that people can have some context when they're hearing about it, and also knowing that you're always available to share that with people. Because I've seen you do it time and time again. And you'll continue to.
Sometimes I get in trouble.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for Canine Chronicle TV.
Had a great time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.